What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Triangle Diagnostics. A lot of you probably recognize the vehicle I'm sitting in from. 2001 GMC Sonoma. This is a 2.2 liter engine. We actually just got done diagnosing and fixing a throttle position sensor fault with this vehicle. And really the focus with this vehicle is going to be attacking another fault code we had in memory, and that was pertaining to the secondary air injection system. So kind of right off the bat, what we're going to do is we're going to get right on it. Let's go to the scan tool, let's check out this fault code and see what we're working with, and then attack this thing. So let's do it. Alrighty guys, we're back on this beast. As you can see, we already have the vehicle identified from where we were doing some troubleshooting earlier. But let's just go back to our codes menu and let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. Just going to go to all powertrain codes. So as we can see, we have this P0122 throttle position sensor circuit fault code. That's the one that we just dealt with, guys, not our focus. We're now going to focus on this P0410 secondary air injection system fault. So this seems like a pretty generic fault code, guys, pertaining to the secondary air system. I honestly do not know what it means. So for me, being a little bit unfamiliar with this, what I want to do is I want to use the troubleshooter menu to give me some sort of idea of what we're dealing with here. So I'm just going to click all the way back. Oop, not that far back. So I'm going to click on the troubleshooter menu here, guys, underneath the engine. You know, this information is available for multiple different information systems, not just the Verus has this. You know, you can go on All Data or Identifix or anything like this and find this sort of information. I just like using the Verus because it's convenient. I'm already on the scan tool, and it allows me to very quickly amass information and kind of gain a diagnostic direction as far as how I want to troubleshoot the system. So on fault code we're dealing with, P0410. We're going to look that up here in code tips. We're going to go into P0. And P04 and P0410. So we're just going to skim over this, guys, and see what sort of system we're dealing with here. Brief circuit description. Secondary air injection pump is used on this vehicle to lower tailpipe emissions on startup. Basically it uses this pump, guys, to speed up the cat doing its thing. Dumps a bunch of raw oxygen into the cat, and it really just kind of almost lights it off in a way. I think that's a pretty common term that's used. And basically just gets this cat working quicker. It's oftentimes used on vehicles that have trouble passing emissions. You know, when this vehicle was originally made, maybe they couldn't exactly meet the standards put forth to them. So they implemented a system like this in order to do that. But anyways, continuing on. The PCM supplies the ground to the air pump relay, which energizes the air pump and the air solenoid valve. So both the pump and the solenoid valve are controlled from the same place. Engine vacuum is applied to the air shutoff valve when the air solenoid is energized. So it looks like this air solenoid is actually a vacuum solenoid, and it is controlling some sort of vacuum actuated cutoff valve, which is going to open a valve going into the exhaust, most likely. The engine vacuum opens the air shutoff valve, which allows air to flow to the exhaust manifolds. So yeah, that's kind of what we just said. And this is a very important key piece of information here, guys. The PCM monitors the heated oxygen sensor voltages to diagnose the air system. So I've dealt with systems like this in the past, guys, and basically what this means is when this engine computer is energizing this air pump solenoid and this air pump motor, it wants to see a lean response from the oxygen sensors. We're dumping a bunch of raw oxygen into the exhaust. Our oxygen sensors should drop lean. If they do not do so in a certain amount of time or for a certain amount of time, basically this engine computer is going to set this trouble code. So we'll keep reading a little bit farther down. When the air system is activated, the PCM monitors the heated oxygen sensor voltages and short-term fuel trim values for both banks of the engine. If the air system is operating normally, the O2 voltages should go low and the short-term fuel trim should go high. If the PCM determines that the heated oxygen sensor voltages for both banks did not respond as expected during the test, then P0410 sets. So right off the bat, guys, we have a pretty clear idea of how this system operates. And the engine computer is going to energize a relay. That relay is going to energize both a motor and a solenoid. This solenoid is a vacuum controlled solenoid, which is going to open a vacuum actuated solenoid. That solenoid is then going to open a valve which allows flow from the air pump motor to the exhaust manifold, and the motor is obviously going to run in order to pump this air into the exhaust manifold. So this should be fairly easy to troubleshoot, guys. Very, very simple. Let's take a quick look at these conditions for setting. Number one is the HO2S voltage does not go below 222 millivolts within 1.2 seconds when the air pump turns on during closed loop operation. So that's some good info there. And then short-term fuel trim does not go above a predetermined amount when the air pump turns on during closed loop operation. So really guys, this engine computer is not doing any sort of circuit monitoring on this design. It is strictly looking at these oxygen sensors as its primary input to whether or not this air pump is doing its thing or not. So based off this guys, I definitely think a good place to start with this is going to be let's see if we have any functional tests in the scan tool. Let's see if we can manually run this pump, energize this air pump relay, and let's just see if the pump even runs at all, and that'll be a good kind of this way or that way sort of direction. So let's do that, guys. All right, guys, so I'm back to the functional tests, or excuse me, the home screen of the Veris here in this engine sub menu. I'm just going to go to functional tests here, and this is probably going to be under output controls. And what I'm looking for is anything pertaining to the secondary air system here. And it in fact does look like we have it right here, this air pump relay on and off. I do have the key on, guys. When I focus on the vehicle, I'm just keeping you guys on the scan tool so you can get a good view of what's going on here. I'm not so much worried about this data here, guys, simply because the vehicle's not running. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press this on key up here, and we're going to listen and see if this air solenoid even comes on, and we can hear the air pump run. So I'm just going to click on. I definitely heard a click under the hood. I don't know if you guys did, but I do not hear an air pump running. I want to click back off. I'm going to do it a few times so you guys can hear the click under hood. So I can definitely hear a relay clicking on the hood. This kind of verifies good control to this relay. What it does not really confirm is this relay good or not. So I think our next step at this point, guys, is let's get some really basic tools out. I want to try and keep this one basic as I can for you guys. We're going to use a test light, and we're going to go to this air pump relay, locate it on the fuse box, pull it out of its holder, and then we're going to do some tests directly at the relay and make sure that it is working properly. All right, guys, so as you can see, I got a bunch of jumbled stuff all over this truck at this point where we've done troubleshooting. So I've been trying to locate this relay, guys, and the first place I looked was here in the fuse box diagram, and this relay is not in this location. So what I did at that point is I pulled up a diagram simply to determine where this relay was, and I found it, guys, and unfortunately without some fairly extensive teardown, we're not going to be able to test it, but I want to attempt to show you where it is on this vehicle. I'm about to spin this camera around real crazy like to get you guys a shot, but we can see the battery right here, guys. You know, here's the front of the vehicle. So if we look at this battery and we kind of look at my blue lead here, I'm going to get you guys focused in behind that, or at least I'm going to try to. And if we look way back there, and I really don't even know if you guys are going to be able to see it or not, but the relay is under there, guys. Really the only way to access it is to pull the battery or potentially pull this fender liner out. Guys, it's not worth it to me. There's no way I'm doing that. So really what I want to do is I want to try and use some kind of basic fundamentals to determine if this determine if this relay is good or not. So I'm going to get you guys focused on the diagram, and I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking. So here we are, guys, the lovely wiring diagram. Probably one of my favorite things to look at. If we look up here, this is the secondary air pump relay here, guys. And I'm not really going to get too much into the particulars of this. But if we look at the load side of this contact relay, we know that the engine computer energizes this relay to energize both the air pump as well as the air pump solenoid. So let's just follow this load side down here. It comes down here and it goes to this splice 105, and it continues going down here. And this unit right here is actually the secondary air pump motor. So we can see that the motor and what looks like the solenoid, it looks like they're potentially built into the same unit, based on how this is currently drawn here. But they're both controlled off of the same relay, guys, without a doubt. So one thing we can use for direction purposes is when we were using that functional test, we were hearing a pretty loud click under the hood. And I've got to tell you guys, it seemed a lot louder than what a relay would to me. It sounded like some sort of heavier solenoid energizing. So what I kind of want to do, guys, is I want to find this air pump unit, and I want to redo that functional test and see if this solenoid is in fact being energized. And that's really going to tell us that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this relay, at least on the output side. You know, we could still very easily have some sort of issue from this splice onward as far as circuit integrity to this pump motor. But as far as the relay itself, if we can get this solenoid to run, that pretty much confirms that, you know, this relay itself is good if we can energize the solenoid with that functional test. So let me see if I can locate this air pump on the car, or excuse me, right here, this guy. And it says lower right front of engine compartment here. So I'm gonna see if I can locate it, see if I can get you a shot of it, and then we're going to use that functional test to see if this relay is good and is actually energizing this solenoid. So that's coming up next. Well, I found it, guys, and we're not gonna be able to see it from up here. I can barely see it kind of looking down between the battery and this upper radiator hose here. So in order to show you guys this pump motor and stuff, and really to access it for testing, I'm gonna need to lift this vehicle up, and we'll get a much clearer, better view of this air pump motor and solenoid assembly. So let me get this thing up in the air, guys, and I'll get you guys right back, and we'll continue on. Alrighty, guys, we're gonna get right down to the heart of the issue here. What we're looking at here, you know, we're just underneath the car. I've got it up on a hoist. This is the secondary air unit here. We can see that it has a motor. It has some hoses coming off of it. We can also see a vacuum actuated solenoid here. I realize it's pretty tough to show you this, guys, but I'm going to see if I can get a better light after this. But if we look at this unit, we see that there's a wiring harness coming off of it here. We can see right here we have a vacuum solenoid. And I'm just kind of looking over this motor, guys, and I'm trying to find the actual motor connection. And it looks like this is it here. There's some heavier gauge wires going up to this. And it looks like it just kind of comes off of a pigtail and plugs directly into the motor right there. So as far as our test location for this motor, it's going to be this harness connector here, guys. This one right to the right, this being the front of the vehicle, just for perspective. As far as the solenoid, basically what we're going to do, this is that vacuum solenoid that actually controls a vacuum to this actuator here. This actuator is going to open and allow flow to come from the motor all the way up this long hose, all the way up to the top of the vehicle and to the exhaust manifold. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this solenoid here for now, and we're just going to use that functional test, and we're really just trying to prove the relay out. We know the pump does not run, but I'm going to energize the relay, and we're going to look and feel on the solenoid and verify that it is in fact working. So just to keep it low tech, not even going to do any voltage measurements as far as this test is concerned. Alrighty, guys, so again, the area we're focused on here is I'm just focused on this solenoid right here that I'm pointing to right now. Hopefully you guys can see that pretty well in the camera. This is in a kind of tough spot to show you guys. One thing I was going to mention at that last portion of this is we can clearly see that this thing is just doused in ATF. So there's a high chance that this motor is just cooked. But we're just going to continue on. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use that same functional test we were doing before, where we were actually turning this relay on and off. And I'm just simply going to put my finger on the solenoid, and I'm just going to feel and see if I can feel it turning on or not. First, we'll take a listen. So I definitely hear a click up there on the relay. But I am not hearing the solenoid clicking here, guys. Let me see if I can do this at the same time while I actually feel here, but I'm definitely not hearing the solenoid click. So I'm just taking my finger and I'm just putting it over the solenoid. Yeah, guys, I'm definitely not feeling the solenoid clicking on and off. What I can definitely hear is that relay up there clicking. So really, I think as for a next step, we need to get a test light here. And we need to look for control on this solenoid at this point. We really need to be worried about this relay, given the fact that this solenoid is not clicking and our motor is not running, which our motor is covered in ATF. So as you guys can see, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. But I'm just going to grab a test light here, guys. And I'm actually going to use a different test light than we've been using. Let me get this bad boy all broke out. He hasn't seen some love lately, so I think we're going to use him. So I'm just looking for a ground here, guys, and there's really nothing easy for me down here to verify a good ground on, which is a little concerning because I really need to prove it out. But I'm just looking for something I can have some sort of confidence with. And you know, obviously we always want to verify our ground location is good, and this is going to be very difficult under here, guys. What I may end up having to do, you know, if we do not have anything on this solenoid down here, is I may need to run my lead up to the battery itself. So not sure yet, but all I'm going to do for this, guys, I'm using this test light, and this test light is somewhat special. I probably wouldn't do this with a normal test light, but I have a 3425 bulb in this that draws about 1 amp of current, and I use this primarily for unplugged, semi-loaded circuit testing. And I'm going to use that for this solenoid. The solenoid is not computer controlled, guys. It comes directly off of a relay, so I'm not worried about hurting this solenoid. I'm just taking a look at these wiring colors, and I realize you guys aren't going to be able to really see it. But what I have here is a pink with what appears to be a black tracer. And then I also have a gray wire here. So let me make sure you guys can see this okay. See what I'm doing? I'm really hoping you guys can. Maybe I'll zoom out a little bit more. Yeah, I'm hoping you guys can see that. But all I'm going to do, guys, I'm just going to take this test light and I'm going to touch each one of these pins, and I'm going to look for control. And as we can see, we have power on this one wire here. Currently our air pump relay is on. I'm going to turn it off. That's off. That's on. That's off. That's on. So we definitely have control here, guys, to this solenoid. We definitely need to be worried about the ground as well. So what I'm going to do to verify that is I'm going to put a T-pin, or excuse me, I'm going to put a T-pin through the backside of one of these solenoid connectors, wires, and then we're going to front probe the other one, and we're going to verify a good ground that way. We're basically just going to use this test light to supplement the load in this circuit and confirm that our circuit integrity is okay. You know, we could also switch our test light to battery positive and do this. Using a test light, we cannot just back probe the ground wire and attempt to make sure that we have a good ground that way, because really all we're going to do is energize the solenoid. So I'm just going to get a T-pin here, guys. Let me see if I can find one. Yeah, so I got a T-pin here, guys. And what it looks like on this connector, I'm just kind of front probing this one more time. This terminal to the left of you guys, I'm not really sure how well you guys can see it, but that's our power feed for this. So all I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to back probe the ground. And the reason I'm back probing the ground is just based on where this T-pin is. I don't want to risk shorting it up against the housing this air pump motor lives on. If I were to back probe that power feed, I could very easily blow the fuse in this location, and I'm really trying to avoid that. So I have the T-pin for this installed in the ground terminal of this air injection solenoid, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this solenoid relay, this air pump relay on, which it currently is, and I'm just going to front probe our power feed terminal on this connector and make sure that my test light lights. And as we can see, it does. I'm making sure my T-pin doesn't touch ground so it doesn't skew our results. And we can see my test light lights. This test light draws 800 milliamps almost on the dot. So that really confirms circuit integrity on this is fine. I'm going to go ahead and remove this T-pin at this point, guys. What we're looking at, guys, I think we're looking at multiple different issues for sure. This solenoid is for sure not clicking on without a doubt. I hear no sort of clicking occurring in the solenoid when we're executing this test. I'm going to do that test one more time just to verify that. So I've got this solenoid plugged back in here, guys. I'm just taking my finger and I'm just resting it on it, and I'm going to turn this air pump relay on and off. That's off. That's on. That's off. That's on. So without a doubt, guys, this solenoid, this air pump solenoid is bad. But really we're not done. There's still definitely more to this. This air pump solenoid controls airflow from the air pump itself into the exhaust manifold. That's basically all it does, is it opens this valve here and allows airflow from the motor to come up through this valve and then to the exhaust manifold. This motor should still run, guys, even if we did have some sort of solenoid fault. in this motor would still run, but we would still have this P0410 fault code because our oxygen sensors would not be going lean. We would not have airflow into the exhaust manifold. So we definitely need to be worried about this motor at this point, guys. We know for a fact we have a bad solenoid. So let's start attacking this motor. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to jet over here, and then I'm going to make sure that you guys can still see what I'm doing here. Let me make sure that shot's still good. That may be as good as you guys are going to get. Let me see here. That might be a little better. And this is probably going to be pretty cleared up. But I'm going to point to the connector we're going to be focused on now here, guys. It's this one right here. This is basically just a pigtail that runs directly around into the motor. That side up there is the harness side of this connector. So we're going to be executing our tests here, and I'm just taking a look at it to see what sort of wire colors we got. And all of this is completely covered in what appears to be transmission fluid. I can see a red and a black. You know, the logical part of me says that this red wire is likely going to be the power feed to this pump, this motor, excuse me, and the black one is going to be the ground. This connector it seems to be just kind of held in with a push pin into this little portion of this bracket here. So I'm just going to grab a push pin panel popper, and I'm just going to kind of pop that connector out, make it a little bit easier for us to work with. This is the tool I'm using here, guys. So I'm just getting on the underside of this connector here. I'm just kind of working it out of that hold down location that it's in. There we go, easy as that. So now we can hopefully see this connector a little bit better. We can manipulate it. As we can see, we have a black wire, we have a red wire. We're going to start, guys, we're going to do a test on this red wire first. I'm fairly certain that this is going to be power feed from the relay to turn this motor on. We're going to do that in much the same way we did this solenoid here, guys. I'm just going to slip this T-pin into the back side of this connector very gently so as not to cross-thread it. I'm then going to reconnect my test light to a ground location. I'm going to use the same one that I used for the solenoid because we had good success with it. And depending on the results of this, guys, we need to check our test light for sure. If our test light does not light, we're going to need to find a good power feed and double check that. So our air pump relay is currently on right now, guys. So if we do have power on this red wire, this test light's going to light. Test light to ground, I'm just going to touch this. And as we can see, this test light does in fact illuminate. So one last check to do on this motor here, guys. And that's going to be this black wire. So I'm just taking this T-pin, going into that black wire. And this being a much higher amperage load, guys, I'm actually going to back probe it, and I'm going to use my test light to check this ground. The reason we did not do it with the solenoid is being that this test light is so hot, it draws almost an amp of current flow. We would have just energized it if it were good. But this being a 30 amp motor, I'm definitely not worried about energizing it accidentally with this test light. So we still have our air pump on, we still have voltage on this red wire. I'm now just going to check this ground location. I'm just touching my test light to this black wire, and we can see it does not light. So without a doubt, guys, this motor's bad. There's a high likelihood we may be able to get it working again. I really hope so. You know, really just to give you guys confidence in what I'm teaching you. But all I'm going to do at this point, guys, I'm just going to tap on this motor, and I'm really hoping that it runs again. I mean, it's completely covered in ATF, so I'm not sure if it's going to work, but let's give it a try. Proof's in the pudding, folks. So this motor's running, not running very well, but that kind of confirms what we did with this here, guys, and that gives you a little bit of confidence in what I'm teaching you. So we hear this motor is now running. So I'm going to go back to the functional test on the scan tool. I'm going to turn this back off. So that's off. We heard it turn off. Back on. And you can see the motor's now running again. One more time. Give it a nice little love tap. And she comes back on. Definitely not running well, guys. I mean, these motors are generally pretty loud. But yeah, that is a confirmed diagnosis. The fix for this vehicle, guys, is going to be to replace this air pump motor. It's also going to need this air pump solenoid. And I'm fairly certain that this whole unit probably comes as an assembly. And really, we need to tell this guy about this transmission fluid leak because it needs to be taken care of. That's probably what took this pump out in the first place. Wow, I just touched it and it stopped. But Yeah, guys, I mean, pretty simple, pretty quick one here. Hopefully this gave you guys some insight on how to troubleshoot these secondary air systems. So let's wrap this one up. All right, guys, that's pretty much it on this one. 2001 Sonoma. A couple different faults on this. In this video, we covered the secondary air injection system fault. We really kind of hit it real quick, real fast. We did a very basic overview of how this system works. The engine computer energizes a relay, which in turn energizes both the motor and the air pump solenoid. This solenoid is a vacuum solenoid, so it's basically controlling vacuum to a vacuum actuator, which is going to open the main hose and allow airflow into the exhaust manifold. That's just a basic gist of how this system works. As far as what the engine computer is actually looking at regarding inputs to determine if the system is working or not, we confirmed that is oxygen sensors. So we did some really kind of down and dirty quick tests to kind of troubleshoot this issue. We used some basic logic to determine, you know, what was working, what wasn't. And ultimately what we did was we ended up going directly to the air pump motor itself and doing some tests there. And we confirmed that we have a bad air pump solenoid as well as a bad air pump motor, likely caused by the transmission fluid leak that we saw in this vehicle. We also took a look at this relay. Unfortunately, it really wasn't worth accessing on this, guys. When I'm performing troubleshooting, really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do it fast and come to a conclusive diagnosis as fast and as accurately as I possibly can. Digging the battery out or maybe the fender liner to gain access to that relay absolutely was not the fastest way to do this. So we kind of went around that just based on what was easy to test, and you guys will see that out in the field when you're performing troubleshooting on vehicles. You really need to be focused on what's easiest to test, what makes the most sense to test. And kind of given what we had on this vehicle, we could hear that relay clicking. That told us that most likely it was probably good, not 100%. And that really pointed us to go towards the air pump and motor and all that. The air pump motor and the solenoid itself is the potential cause of this. So that's the direction we took. Pretty simple as far as circuit checks go. We didn't really dive into the diagram a whole lot on this one. I more just wanted to do a very quick cover of this system, maybe some common faults on this. If you guys own an S10 or a Sonoma like this one, you know this is definitely an issue to look out for, especially with the fluid leaks that we found on this. I'm sure this isn't the only Sonoma with fluid leaks in that location. But real very quick kind of addressal of this secondary air system. But again, I hope you guys took something out of it, and you know, because I was so quick with this one, if you guys have any questions whatsoever or want me to clarify anything pertaining to the secondary air system, please just leave a question in the comments. I have no issue with, you know, responding to you guys and giving you more information on how exactly this system works, if you guys would like to know about it. Unfortunately, time-wise, it wasn't in the cards for this one for me, but you know, we're here to learn from one another, and I'm here to teach you guys. So please, any questions, anything else, anything you're running into on these, you know, just leave a comment, and I promise you that I will respond and give you some more clarity to this system. But hopefully you guys took something away from it. You know, I know I did. You know, it's a pretty fun one, pretty simple one, fairly easy, fairly straightforward. We cover some functional test stuff, and really just using the scan tool as a powerful guide in our diagnosis. But that's pretty much it for this one, guys. We fixed the throttle position sensor issue. He didn't want to do anything with this air pump. The new unit was like $250. So yeah, he didn't want any part of that. But we definitely got the throttle position sensor fixed for him, so he'll definitely be happy about that. But as for the Sonoma, guys, we're all done with it. Again, any questions you have, please leave them down in the comments. And thanks for your continued support, and see you next time.